The following is a presentation of the Pro Wrestling Report, TV and radio. Informative, entertaining, and real since 1998. Live from the PWR studios in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, this is the Pro Wrestling Report Post Show on Blog Talk Radio with your host, Dameon Nelson.
TNA Destination X. Let's go back now. Let's go back now to the phones and attempt to get some of your comments on tonight's Destination X pay-per-view. Let's go to a caller who is calling us from the 318 area code. Caller from the 318, you are live here on the Pro Wrestling Report Post Show.
Hey, Dameon, it's Will from Louisiana.
What did you think of Destination X on pay-per-view?
I think it was a good pay-per-view. I got a buddy of mine that says it's one of his favorite pay-per-views of all time now.
Favorite of all time? Wow, that's huge.
For me, it was a good change-up from the original, well, I'm not going to say original, but the TNA shows here lately where the main event is always involved like Sting or Anderson or RPD. It was nice to see X Division guys get a spotlight. My only question is, what are they going to do with the X Division going forward? Are they going to keep this momentum going, or is it just going to kind of stall out like it's been the past couple of months?
You know, that's been the debate going into this pay-per-view is what is next and what will happen next from TNA as it pertains to the X Division. A couple of weeks they've been building to this, and now we have the pay-per-view. We see the pay-per-view. The question that is still out there is, what is next? And I don't know if there's an answer to that yet, Will, from Louisiana, but we'll see potentially this Thursday on Impact. Overall, would you consider the pay-per-view, Will, a pass or a fail?
I consider it a pass. They had way too many matches on there that were good to say match of the night, but if I had to pick one, I'd say Kendrick versus Abyss just because it was good storytelling in the ring.
All right. Thank you so much for those comments and for the call, Will. And we're joined now by David Herro. David Herro, now you were so upset with the fact that you had to join us here on the post show that you took out the feed for a few minutes. Really? What's going on with that? David Herro.
First, listen, Dameon Nelson, you ruined my Sunday night. I told you I'd be the book of what was going to happen. DWHS Kendrick. The best match of the night was the four guys going for the contract, but to be quite honest, other than that, it was a regular Impact for me. AJ and Daniels didn't do it, and I've got my 30 seconds in. I'm going to go back to business, and I'll talk to you Monday night.
What? Wait a minute. What do you mean? Are you kidding me? What was that sound? You did not just call in from that location? Well, David Herro gone, ladies and gentlemen, apparently sticking to what he said about this pay-per-view, that it wasn't worth it, that it was another night of Impact. Well, we're going to get to your comments, and you can call us. The number, 347-996-5278. We apologize for any challenges that we may have had in the first few minutes of the show getting on live. Don't know what the reason for that was, but we are live now, and we've got dozens of you waiting on hold. So without further ado, let's go now to our next caller. And again, we're going to identify you callers by the area code from which you're calling from. At that point, please tell us your name and what city you're calling from. Let's go to a caller in the 973 area code. Caller in the 973, what's your name and where are you calling from?
What's up, Dameon? Don from New York. What's going on in the NWK tonight?
Not much at all. It's a beautiful night, a little hot, a little humid, but it seems to be that way all around the country.
Hey, man, great show. And I don't know what that was, if that was even the real David Herro or a fake David Herro. But anyway, you know.
Oh, that was David Herro.
Oh, my gosh. What a travesty. But listen, you were at the Cincinnati pay-per-view, and I think I'm echoing a lot of the thoughts in the chat room right now, David. That crowd was just abysmal, okay? No energy, no excitement whatsoever. They have to take the pay-per-views on the road, Dameon. What's your thoughts on that?
Thank you very much for that call, Don, from out of New York. I would say that they do need to take the pay-per-views on the road, and they are working on that because we did learn recently that coming up in a few weeks, Impact is going to be going back on the road. The Thursday night Spike TV show is going to be going back on the road. And the next step is to get those pay-per-views out there. I would differ with your point on the crowd tonight, though, because I think they were hot during the Kazarian and Samoa Joe match. I think they were hot during the four-way matchup. And I think that they were, at times, hot during the Styles versus Daniels matchup. But keep in mind what they did to the audience. gave him the great match between Kazarian and Samoa Joe, and then took it down several notches with Doug Williams and Mark Haskins, and then that bonus match, if you can call it that, between Generation Me and Eric Young and Shark Boy. So I don't know if I give the fans or fault the fans for anything tonight, but your point is valid. The fans play a huge role, and getting to new audiences is a key goal and should be a key target for TNA Wrestling. Thank you for that call, Don, out in New York. Let's go to our next caller, calling from the 704 area code. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, Dameon, this is Phil from Charlotte, North Carolina. How are you?
Absolutely tremendous. What did you think of Destination X tonight?
I thought it was a good pay-per-view. I really liked the TNA product. If I had to say one thing negative, it was that I really did not to beat up on the guy, but I did not like Jeremy Borash on commentary, and I actually think that it took away from the show a little bit. I felt that Mike Tenay was kind of out there by himself, and probably at some of the mute points he was maybe elbowing the guy to give him some help. I really liked the pay-per-view, but I did not like Jeremy on commentary.
And to that point, Taz had a family situation he had to deal with. He had announced a couple of days ago he wouldn't be there. It was an interesting dynamic between Tenay and Borash. It seemed like Tenay took a back seat tonight to Borash's commentary. However, I thought it was fitting that Borash was there only because of the historical points that he could give with more emphasis, I think, on not only the history of the X Division, but the history of those stars that were highlighted on tonight's pay-per-view. So whether or not his actual style or his presentation was good tonight, I thought it made some sense and ultimately was effective.
Well, I would disagree, but again, I'm not trying to beat up on the guy. I thought it was a good pay-per-view.
Favorite match?
Oh, favorite match was the four-way, and Austin was incredible. All the guys did a great job. And Kendrick, I really like him. I think he had a good showing on the previous pay-per-view. And good, like the other callers said, just a great guy to tell a story with.
Thank you very much for that call, Phil, over in Charlotte, North Carolina. And, again, we're taking your phone calls. The number 347-996-5278.
You're listening to the most popular sports show on Blog Talk Radio, the Pro Wrestling Report.
Let's go to our next caller, who's calling us from the 516 area code. Caller from the 516, you're live. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hello?
Hello, what's your name?
Oh, my name is Aaron, and I'm from New York.
Aaron, what'd you think of Destination X tonight on pay-per-view?
Actually, I kind of was hoping. Yeah, I'm happy that Austin Aries is in TNA, and that might bring some interesting storylines to like TNA. But I really don't like how AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels, he lost. AJ won, and everybody predicted it. At least TNA could have shook it up a little bit. Sure, TNA got back to the fundamentals, but come on, at least, you know what they should have done? They should have actually just bring a mortal out to ruin the match, so it can bring on more of a storyline. And then some people in Immortal, maybe on Thursday, TNA can do a match with AJ Styles, a tag team match with AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels versus two of Immortal. That would actually made a lot of sense.
Yeah, and we'll potentially see what happens this upcoming Thursday on Impact, but we did see Immortal get involved tonight in that X Division Championship matchup, and I think they took some risk with potentially damaging the X Division, but did not in that matchup tonight with that run-in. Thank you very much for that call, Aaron from New York. Let's go to our next caller, who calls us from the 202 area code. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
How you doing tonight, Dameon? This is Ron calling from the nation's capital, Washington, D.C.
Ron, how are you?
I'm great. I'm doing tremendous tonight.
Good.
I want to get my thoughts on tonight's pay-per-view. I thought the pay-per-view was a lackluster in all of its state. They had, the fatal four-way matchup between Low Key, Jack Evans, and Austin Aries and Zema Ion. I think that was beverage drink that didn't do too well back in the days, but but that was like the match of the night for me, especially Jack Evans. He was just, even though he is a spot monkey, but he's just amazing at what he does. Nobody can do it like him. But the AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels match, I was very, very disappointed in that matchup because back in the day when they had the Iron Man match, they had the Iron Man matchup, and they pretty much had the Iron Man, the triple threat match with Samoa Joe. That's where I became a huge fan of TNA. But but if I would watch this match now, and I just watched this match, I would look at it like, wow, this is it? Like, really? And it's like you have to go back into the archives to get your TNA or X Division good time fix, and it seems like they're not standing up to their standards within the X Division. I mean, the AJ Styles and then the Jerry Lynn and RVD match, I mean, God bless them. I mean, they showed their age tonight. I mean, I was very upset because I remember watching RVD and Jerry Lynn back in the old ECW days, the very old ECW days, not WWE crap they try to shove down our throats. But I became a huge fan. I was like, oh my God, this is great. This is so great, and I couldn't wait to see the next Jerry Lynn and RVD match. But it was like tonight, man, I was like, this is, and I was in the chat room, and people were talking about Money in the Bank, and Destination X was going on. So that shows you how the pay-per-view was doing. And I thought the pay-per-view, it had its moments, but it really didn't. It really should have been much, much better. It reminded me of Hardcore Justice of last year, or pretty much ECW's WWE's version of ECW's December to Dismember pay-per-view, because
this pay-per-view, in your opinion, was not worth the price of admission tonight.
Not at all. I wouldn't waste my hard-earned money to purchase that. I'll probably wait for Money in the Bank, because at least Money in the Bank has more substance to it, and it has a story to it where it's very, very interesting. CM Punk leaving, maybe taking the title with him. John Cena, if he loses, he's fired. And it could go in leading up towards Money in the Bank, it could go either way. Plus, you got the 2 Money in the Bank ladder matches. And it could go either way, and it makes the pay-per-view more meaningful. And, it has great build-up for Money in the Bank. I think Money in the Bank is going to outdo Destination X next Sunday. I believe so.
We'll see what happens with that. Thank you very much for that call, Ron and DC. And speaking of Money in the Bank, the Pro Wrestling Report is going to be there at ringside watching that event. So we will not be doing a post-show for Money in the Bank. However, we will be live the next night on 540 ESPN talking all about the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, which should be an interesting show to say the least. But tonight is all about TNA's Destination X pay-per-view, and we're going to talk about that. Again, we're taking your phone calls, 347-996-5278.
You're listening to the most popular sports show on Blog Talk Radio, the Pro Wrestling Report. Don't forget to follow PWR right here on Blog Talk Radio right now. Be reminded of upcoming episodes and never miss Blog Talk Radio's most popular sports show. Follow PWR now.
And we are going to be going extra time tonight as we had some technical difficulties at the beginning of the show, so we're still taking your phone calls, and we've got some of you that have been waiting on hold for a while, including a caller from the 239 area code. Caller, you are live. What's your name and where you're calling from?
Hey, I'm Carlos. I'm calling from Fort Myers, Florida.
Carlos, what'd you think of the pay-per-view tonight?
Oh man, that pay-per-view, couple matches, like I said. I don't think a couple matches was good, like the Fatal 4. That basically was the match of the night. The RVD busting his head right on the chair, and then I believe that was like a real cut. So I don't know, little bumps, little stuff I know it was good, but other than that, there was just too many botches, too many mistakes, and people slip in and fall.
You were right. There are a couple of people, specifically I think Jack Evans and AJ Styles, that slipped on either the top rope or the top turnbuckle. And hey, you gotta say that stuff's gonna happen. It's artistic presentation, and at times things go wrong. I'm not sure you can fault them for it.
But I'm sure they do this over and over. But like the crowd was hyped the whole night. Like it made the pay-per-view better than it actually was.
All right. Well, Carlos, thank you very much for calling in, and we appreciate your time. And, again, we're taking your calls at number 347-996-5278. Want to remind you, tomorrow night we'll be talking more about TNA Destination X on our ESPN radio show on 540 ESPN out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and all over the world, right here on Blog Talk Radio and at ESPNMilwaukee.com.
Tired of all the lies, rumors, and assumptions in wrestling news? So are we. Join us each week for the Pro Wrestling Report on ESPN Radio for the latest news and views on pro wrestling. Visit us at pwrshow.com to check the latest schedule.
And let's go to our next caller, who's calling us from the 210 area code. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from? Caller from the 210? All right, let's go to our next caller, actually calling from the 718 area code. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
This is Ryan from Brooklyn.
Hello, Ryan from Brooklyn. What did you think of Destination X tonight?
Man, I thought it was a great pay-per-view. I like a lot of the high-flying stuff, and I was entertained. And, that's kind of what I look for when I watch wrestling. The matches were really good. That four-way for that contract was absolutely unbelievable. And it was nice not to see, like, the bigger guys for a while, to see the guys who really fly around, they're athletic. So, all in all, I give it like a B+ or even like an A-. I think it was a really good, well-put-together pay-per-view. I did kind of groan when Immortal came out, but I kind of like how that played out.
Yeah.
It's the last thing we need is, like, it being ruined by Bully Ray and the rest of Immortal. But the way it played out, the story was real good. But I was let down by the main event. I really expected a little bit more. I've seen them put on phenomenal matches before, and they're going to focus on the X Division. There really wasn't the match to do it with. So that was the only letdown.
What is the more that you wanted in that matchup? I mean, they gave us about 30 minutes of great wrestling. They told a story, I think, in the ring. They showed athleticism. The right man won. I'm not challenging on it, but I just would like to hear your opinion on what might have been missing from that matchup.
I don't know. I've just seen matches from the two of them where I walk away like, wow, like this is why I love wrestling. I guess just tonight just didn't do it. It's like that little bit extra. I think they're phenomenal. I got to meet AJ when I went to Brooklyn, when they came to Brooklyn. He's an awesome dude. He's one of the best, in the ring. But I don't know, like that little extra it wasn't there. Or maybe it was because we had such amazing matches beforehand that it didn't compare to the four-ways.
Okay, valid points. Ryan from Brooklyn, thank you very much for calling in and being a part of the program. Let's go to our next caller who calls us from the 913 area code. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
This is Connor from Kansas City.
Connor from Kansas City, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Absolutely tremendous. What did you think of the pay-per-view tonight?
I definitely have to give it a pass just because of the Fatal 4-Way, and I'm kind of going to go against the grain here. I thought the AJ Styles-Daniels match was actually pretty good. I don't compare it to the triple threat they had with Samoa Joe, but overall I thought it was still a very good wrestling match.
What was your favorite and least favorite match of the night?
Least favorite would have to be Ultimate X, just because it was so underwhelming. I mean, they could have done so much more, and they didn't. Favorite would have to be the Fatal 4-Way, and I actually have one question for you. When you watch the match, you could hear the crowd saying, "Sign them all." My question is, should they?
Well, here's the thing, and here's what you got. You got to look beyond right now. Sign them all, and then what?
I know.
That's the challenge. And, it's a point that's been made many a time. I think that, Low-Key has proven himself. He is a great talent. I think one of the best talents in the wrestling business right now. Jack Evans, with all the talent he has, he doesn't have a look. And that's one thing that's missing from him. It's not a knock on him. I've been a Jack Evans fan for years. But is he a guy that, you could build your program around or build a program around that people are going to care about on a long-term basis? That's the question that needs to be asked. And Zema Ion, I thought he was actually going to win the match tonight because they were telling a story about the National Geographic special on him and being from the Philippines and all that stuff, so it seemed like they were making a story out of him. I would be very surprised if you didn't see those other three performers, wrestlers, if you will, in that matchup in TNA later on down the road. But the right man, I think, for storyline's sake, Austin Aries won that matchup tonight. And, again, had they signed them all, maybe they did, maybe they will. Who knows if they will. I'm not sure what they do with them from that point, though.
True, but does TNA ever really know what they're going to do with somebody?
Hey, now be nice. Connor, yeah, you are just saying the truth. Connor from Kansas City, thank you very much for that call. And for those of you just joining us, let's go over the pay-per-view as it was tonight, if you weren't able to catch it. Kazarian defeating Samoa Joe. Doug Williams defeating a newcomer to TNA, Mark Haskins from across the pond. Generation Me defeated Eric Young and Shark Boy in a bonus matchup. Alex Shelley wins the Ultimate X match, defeating Robbie E., Amazing Red, and Shannon Moore. Rob Van Dam gets a victory over Jerry Lynn. Austin Aries wins the four-way match and gets a contract with TNA Wrestling. Brian Kendrick is the new X Division champion, and AJ Styles defeated Daniels to show who the true leader of the X Division is. This is the Pro Wrestling Report post-show on Blog Talk Radio, but you can also join us on iTunes and make sure you never miss an episode. Take it with you on your iPod, iPad, iPhone, and wherever else you may go.
Missed an episode on the Pro Wrestling Report? Thanks, pal. Subscribe to the show on iTunes and take the show with you wherever you go, even in the bathroom.
And we're taking your phone calls. Again, the number 347-996-5278. We'll acknowledge you by the area code from which you're calling from, and then we will ask you your name and where you're calling from, and you can share that with us, and then go into your question or comment and allow us to move on to the additional or to the next caller so that we can get as many people on as we can tonight. And it looks like our next caller is calling us from the 914 area code. Caller, you're live. What's your name and where are you calling from?
This is Shauna from Yonkers, New York.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you, Dameon?
Absolutely fantastic. Your thoughts on tonight's Destination X pay-per-view?
Destination X tonight was really, really good. Kazarian Joe match was pretty solid. Wasn't that great. I was expecting more from Joe though. He's pretty lazy tonight. So the Ultimate X match, Alex Shelley couldn't care less about getting the X off the rope, you know. And the main event was a little disappointing. I was expecting a lot more from AJ Styles. Daniel was kind of dominating pretty much the whole match and everything. So the RVD Jerry Lynn match was really good.
What was your least favorite match on the show?
My least favorite match would be Doug Williams versus I forgot his name again.
That would be Mark Haskins.
Mark Haskins, yeah, that would be my least favorite match. The Brian Kendrick Abyss match was pretty good. I was kind of I didn't like how Emoto interrupted the match.
Yeah.
But I kind of like how it resulted in Kendrick getting the roll up.
The win in the X Division Championship as well from Abyss.
Yeah.
And I think it made sense and sort of had to happen that way tonight on the pay-per-view. With it being an X Division themed pay-per-view, that had to be the direction that they went in my opinion. Thank you very much for that call from Yonkers, New York. Let's go to a caller calling from the 336 area code. Caller, you're live.
Hi, this is Ken from North Carolina. How you doing?
Doing tremendous.
Yeah, my question is this, I'm so proud of that TNA. They're doing good with the X Division. But my question is, how come the WWE can't do something like this? And to me, I feel like, if they didn't push guys like Tyson Kidd, Yoshitatsu, or Daniel Bryan, or Sin Cara, I see those guys going straight to TNA and join the X Division.
Valid point, but let's look at it realistically. Where's the money? Money's in WWE. Where's the fame? The fame's in WWE. Where's the long-term security as far as financially goes? It's in WWE. They've got stars that can do this. They've got Sin Cara. They've got several others, Evan Bourne. They've got people who can deliver on this level. And I venture to say come next Sunday at Money in the Bank, you may see that. You may see some of this great performance. But what's different between WWE and TNA, you're not going to see WWE give a whole pay-per-view to it. You're going to see TNA do that because they can. And it is something that TNA Wrestling has, they were built on the X Division. So in that regard, it makes some sense. But WWE focuses on more well-rounded entertainment, and I think that for those guys and for those type matchups, you're going to see them sporadically in WWE, but when you see them, they are much more important. An old journalism saying goes like this: never use a special effect too much because it will no longer be special, and you have the risk of diluting that type of match if it's done too often. Tonight was a good reintroduction to what the X Division is for any new fans that are not familiar with it from TNA Wrestling. The question that we've asked on the show is, what's the long-term play? Matter of fact, what even was the short-term play for tonight? Did they make some money on this pay-per-view? That's a given. Absolutely they did, because their overhead is pretty low. But are they maintaining momentum? And will more people tune in on Thursday to find out what happened? Will more people tune into the next pay-per-view because of how good or bad this pay-per-view was? Those are all questions that have yet to be answered.
Yes, and do you think that possibly they will probably bring back the Cruiserweight belt?
In World Wrestling Entertainment, I doubt that very seriously. They've already got too many belts right now. Look at the tag team belts. They're a complete joke. They can't even focus on those. The United States and Intercontinental Championship belts have become complete jokes and afterthoughts. They need to wrap that up before they start introducing new titles.
Exactly, but a lot of fans were saying that they wanted to bring the Cruiserweight belt because they see guys like, Sin Cara and Justin Gabriel. I remember I was at the WrestleMania Fan Access, and this guy said, how come they not have the Cruiserweight belt back? They say that they need to bring that back because you have guys like Tyson Kidd, Sin Cara, and Evan Bourne in them, and I could see them become a Cruiserweight champion.
Potentially, if they were to reintroduce the title, but again, I think it's a far-fetched scenario to think that they may do that. Thank you very much for that call from North Carolina, and I want to remind all of you that we are going to be on the ESPN 540 ESPN tomorrow night for our weekly ESPN radio show, and you can listen right here on Blog Talk Radio right along with us.
Tired of all the lies, rumors, and assumptions in wrestling news? So are we. Join us each week for the Pro Wrestling Report on ESPN Radio for the latest news and views on pro wrestling. Visit us at pwrshow.com to check the latest schedule.
We are also live in the chat room here on Blog Talk Radio. There's a couple of hundred of you talking in there right now. One comment from a username Armbar782 saying the U.S. belt is a joke. What you talking about, Dameon? Well, what I mean by that is the U.S. title used to be next in line to the WCW Championship. The Intercontinental Championship used to be next in line to the World Championship or the WWE Championship. Now, not the case. I would venture to say many of you at a time in the last 12 months had to think to yourselves and second guess who the current Intercontinental Champion or who the current United States Champion was. That's what I mean by it is a joke. It's been a joke for a long while, and those belts don't mean nearly as much as they used to, comparatively speaking, to their historical value. So keep those comments coming in the chat room on Blog Talk Radio. And again, we're on Facebook. We're also on Twitter. And your comments have been spectacular all night long. We got a lot of phone calls to get to, so we're going to try to get to those in these remaining minutes of the show. And it looks like our next caller is going to be calling us from the 217 area code. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Yo, what's up, Dameon? My name is Jack. I'm calling from Rantoul, Illinois.
Jack from Illinois. What did you think of the pay-per-view tonight?
I thought it was really, really good. I was surprised to see the six-sided ring return, especially with Hulk Hogan and all of them there.
Mm-hmm. What was your favorite match and least favorite match?
My favorite match probably the Ultimate X match.
All right.
And
was it worth the $35 the pay-per-view tonight?
Yeah, most definitely. Because my last pay-per-view that I ordered before this was actually another TNA pay-per-view. Was the Hardcore Justice last year. That was the last pay-per-view I ordered from TNA.
So you're a specialty pay-per-view kind of guy.
Kind of, but I mean, like I just hear like the old school guys coming back from TNA and the old school ECW guys coming back to the Hardcore Justice. So I wanted to see that because I like the old school stuff mainly.
All right. Well, Jack from Illinois, thank you very much for that call. And let's go to our next caller, who's calling from the 832 area code. Caller from the 832, you're live. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Yo, what up, David? It's me, Ricardo from Houston.
Hello, Ricardo. What'd you think of the pay-per-view tonight?
Before I give my thoughts, I don't appreciate Austin Aries saying that if I'm free streaming the pay-per-view, I should choke on whatever I'm eating on.
Well, you know what? To be honest with you, if you free stream these pay-per-views, there's two people responsible. The company for not making you care enough to buy it, and second, you who streamed it because you're stealing and taking money off the table of these athletes, these performers who would be making paydays off of your buys for the pay-per-view. It's a tricky place to be in. It's a tricky place to be in.
Away from the company, not from them.
Oh, yes, you are, because they do get pay-per-view bonuses based off of the number of buys for the pay-per-view.
Well, shouldn't you blame the company for not marketing this pay-per-view and never putting enough stars to make me want to buy it?
That is the other half of the blame, absolutely. Absolutely, but it makes, and I'm not speaking of you specifically, because I don't want you to admit here on Worldwide Radio that you may have streamed the pay-per-view, because that is somewhat of a federal offense. But for those who do, I understand the desire to watch it. I also understand that the desire may not be there to spend money on it, because the company may not have gotten you that invested in it, but at the same time, it's a tricky place. It's a catch-22. Nobody really wins in the scenario except for the company who may, let's say you streamed it once and you decided it was a good show, and you decide to order the next pay-per-view, or you decide to watch Impact, or whatever it may be. One thing TNA doesn't do, which is, again, where the responsibility falls on them, one thing TNA doesn't do is they don't go after the streams as aggressively as World Wrestling Entertainment does. You barely can ever find a stream for a World Wrestling Entertainment pay-per-view, but you can always seemingly find one for a TNA Wrestling pay-per-view. So, thank you very much for that call, Ricardo from Houston. And let's go to our next caller, who's calling us from the 414 area code. Caller, you are live here on the Pro Wrestling Report Post Show. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Hey, what's up? I'm James from our hometown, Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Representing the MKE along with Austin Aries. James, welcome to the show. What did you think of the pay-per-view tonight?
Oh, my God. It was awesome. Absolutely awesome. I mean, this is what wrestling should be. Everybody's starting to realize WWE is more for entertainment purposes. They're not really focused on the titles, the belts, meanings of anything. They're just focused on entertaining people. Now Impact Wrestling is now focused on actual wrestling fans and giving us our wrestling fix. My favorite match of the night was absolutely the four-way. Austin Aries looked great in the ring. He looked great in ROH. When he first came to TNA, he looked great, and he still looks great. And I think all the other four wrestlers, both he and the two new guys, they did phenomenal in the ring. The main event, AJ Styles versus Christopher Daniels. It seemed like before it came, it seemed like in the ring, like somebody told them to hold back. And I don't think they want their two top stars to get hurt. Everybody knows that their in-ring capabilities are a lot better than what they were presenting. Don't you agree?
Here's what I would say. I think most people were expecting a spot fest from Styles and Daniels tonight. And just because they didn't deliver a spot fest does not mean they didn't deliver a great wrestling match. I think they delivered a great wrestling match.
Right.
It was uncharacteristic of what we've seen from them in the past, but the true superstars, the true great wrestlers can deliver a great wrestling contest for 30, 45, 60 minutes in the ring and put those well-placed spots in there, but not rely on those spots to make the match.
Right, I definitely agree. Hands down, that match was solid. There's nothing bad about that match. It's just that they're capable of doing more in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
That match was better than anything WWE has to present today.
But I think they proved tonight that they are capable of doing much more in the ring by doing much more in the ring by doing less. Do you understand what I'm saying with that? They delivered a good story. They delivered depth. They delivered psychology. They delivered a wrestling contest. Now, it was interesting to me during that four-way, people were chanting, this is wrestling. Well, you know what?
Right.
That really wasn't wrestling, okay? It was great, by the way. I think it was the best part of the night, but it wasn't wrestling. Wrestling
You're right.
wrestling is the stuff we saw back in the day. This is a new era of wrestling or sports entertainment. But again, I don't fault Daniels and Styles. I think they put on a great show. Did I feel I got what I expected from the match as well as you're saying? No, probably not. But I got a good wrestling match, and I'm happy for that. But they did set an expectation, and I'm not sure if they met that expectation. Again, I'm not saying it was a bad match, but I'm not sure they met the expectation or met the bar that they had set for themselves over the past few years.
Right. I just wish they could have gave the new fans that are watching Impact Wrestling what they gave us back in the day. Because then the new fans would be like, wow, I didn't know these guys can do this stuff.
Right.
I know they can do this stuff, but the fans that joined the bandwagon know they can do this stuff.
Yep.
And my last point is I thought the funniest thing tonight was the promo that Austin Aries cut, because the funny thing about that promo, I was calling my friend. I asked him if he ordered a pay-per-view, because I ordered it. And he was like, no, I'm watching it on Justin. I don't know what the website was, but he was like, I'm watching on a stream. And as soon as he said that, Austin Aries came on, and he was like, well, I forgot what did he say on the promo, but he said something about people watching on the streams, and I'm just like started laughing, and I'm like, dude, that's the clip.
Yep. Well, Austin Aries has long been a very outspoken performer. And, whether that was planned, scripted, or whatever, he said what he probably believed, and he is a rare breed and an amazing performer. And I was happy to see him win that matchup tonight.
Yep.
James from Milwaukee, thank you very much for tuning in and calling into the show today. Let's stay in Wisconsin and go to our next caller, calling from the 608 area code. Caller, what's your name and what city are you calling from?
This is Troy Dean calling from the capital city, Madison, Wisconsin.
Troy, how are you tonight?
Pretty good. Yourself, Dameon?
I'm good. Hey, do you know where the governor's mansion is in Wisconsin?
I sure do.
All right, I'm going to give you a call later. I got a project for you to work on there. But anyways, what were your thoughts on tonight's Destination X pay-per-view?
People were supposed to call this the throwaway pay-per-view. I heard some people trying to compare it, the throwaway like Hard Justice. Well, this blew Hard Justice out of the water. It was a very entertaining pay-per-view. I liked it a lot just for the fact that wrestlers like Jack Evans I've been following since 2003 and stuff like that. And I pretty much knew the outcome of that match just for the fact that Jack Evans is a tag team champion and a light heavyweight champion in AAA. And it was a switch for wrestlers. Jeff Jarrett's the champion out there, so they brought in, Jack Evans. I thought the one dude, Ion, I thought he was going to get signed actually because he has a good look to him. And, not knocking Austin Aries because he's also a good performer, but I thought the one kid had a very good look to him. And hopefully, TNA will keep him around. I know as far as low-key, if people listen to his interviews before, there still might be tiny bit of hard feelings about, TNA wanting to keep the name low-key and stuff like that.
Right.
But overall, it was a great match. I know people are kind of, I shouldn't say disappointed about the AJ Daniels match, but people don't understand the match they put on, almost, 7 years ago is not the same match you're going to put on today because they're a little bit older. And, some people are careful with the high spots they do now and not comparing, but if you listen to like Ricky Steamboat and Ric Flair talk about their matches, they would say their younger matches that were non-televised were better than their matches from, Russell War 89 and stuff like that. So people need to understand that these guys are a little older and they're a little smarter and they wanted to, have a match, not just a spot fest. The spot fest was for the four-way match and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Well, Troy, thank you very much for that call out in Madison, Wisconsin. We appreciate you joining us here on the Post Show.
Stop stalking your ex and be our friend on Facebook and join the tremendous worldwide discussion. Facebook.com/Pro Wrestling Report.
And a couple of comments from Facebook, specifically on our Pro Wrestling Report page on Facebook. A question that was asked of all of you out there is, what did you think of the four-way match where one man grabbed a TNA contract? A couple of comments here. Jake Real saying awesome. Joe Zer saying tremendous. Terrence Reed saying the sign them all chant was all too fitting. All four men put on a clinic. Spots and chemistry in the ring made an amazing show to watch. It was my match of the night just because it defines the X division. Saul Perez Jr. saying they all deserve TNA contracts. That match was match of the night of Destination X. Well done. And Jeffrey Tyler Anderson, I agree with the chants, sign them all. A lot of compliments and a lot of repeats of that sign them all chant that was happening during that pay-per-view. However, not everybody thought it was as great. Kevin Fuss saying it was well done, but the pace seemed off a bit. Nice spots throughout the match, and all four men should be proud. But overall, very, very good feedback on that matchup. And let's go to another caller. This caller is going to be coming to us from the 701 area code. Caller from the 701. You are live. What's your name and what city are you calling from?
Okay, this is Thomas from Minot, North Dakota. And I'm just saying that I liked the four-way match. I thought it was pretty good. And, it was entertaining and all that. But my question to you is, if TNA were to go with this angle for X Division and go into the future with it, who do you think besides Brian Kendrick would be that main guy?
Besides Brian Kendrick, who would be the main guy in the X Division? I think that was defined tonight with AJ Styles being that main guy. However, I think he more so outgrew the X Division tonight than anything else. I think that with the re-signing of Austin Aries, you've got some opportunity there. Kazarian has always been a great talent in the X Division, as has Samoa Joe. Alex Shelley, Amazing Red. You even got Shannon Moore thrown in there. There are a lot of opportunities for some X Division stars in TNA Wrestling to be the focal point of that division. We'll see what happens over the course of the next few weeks.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the call, Thomas from North Dakota. And again, more comments from our Facebook page. The question, did the main event between AJ Styles and Daniels deliver at Destination X? Luke Henderson saying no. Ricardo Banda saying too long. Kevin Fuss said good match. Luke Henderson saying I was vague with the pacing. The pacing was all wrong. They never got going. Granted, for a TNA match it was good, but for Daniel Styles, not up to par for me, disappointing. Wow. Justin Watchery saying, no, the whole show was a waste. And all the naysayers of the X Division like me have been proven right. It just doesn't work. Mikey Cruz, I kept waiting for them to pick it up, but I was just never able to get fully invested. Sean Doby, great match, but got the feeling there are people who expected a spot fest rather than the match we got. Not their best one-on-one match, but still a very good, even match. And finally, James Wim saying, wasn't better than their two Iron Man matches, but no doubt delivered. By far TNA's best match this year. And for fans who are saying it's too long, well, you like the new TNA gimmick Wrestling Matters. Well, that's wrestling. So comments continue on our Facebook page. I got to say, overall, this pay-per-view, it certainly wasn't the best one I've seen this year. It absolutely wasn't the worst one I've seen this year. I guess thumbs are in the middle on this one, folks. Again, the standout matches for me were the four-way match between Austin Aries, Zema Ian, Loki, and Jack Evans. And I'd have to say the Ultimate X match is a close second. Alex Shelley, Robbie E., Amazing Red, and Shannon Moore. I was let down by the RVD Jerry Lynn match. Maybe it was 5 or 10 years too late. I don't know. Or maybe I've soured that much on RVD that the investment's not there anymore. A good show overall from TNA Wrestling. Did it entertain me for 3 hours? Actually, it didn't. Did it entertain me for 2 of those 3 hours? Absolutely, it did. So we'll see what's next from them and what's next in the July pay-per-view schedule, which is WWE's Money in the Bank, which is next Sunday on pay-per-view. Pro Wrestling Report's going to be representing at the Allstate Arena in Chicago, ringside for that show. And we'll be providing you updates all over our social media channels, including right here on Blog Talk Radio. Details will be released over the course of the week right here on the Pro Wrestling Report. So be sure to tune in and be sure to never miss when we have a show scheduled by following the show right here on Blog Talk Radio.
Don't forget to follow PWR right here on Blog Talk Radio right now. Be reminded of upcoming episodes and never miss Blog Talk Radio's most popular sports show. Follow PWR now.
All right, and let's try a couple more callers. We've got a couple people here on the phones, and let's see if there's anyone who still wants to talk. We've got a caller, looks like it's calling from the 704 area code. Caller from the 704, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Dameon, this is Phil. I'm just listening on my phone, and I think you came back around to me. I spoke earlier.
All right, Phil. Well, hello again.
But if you want me to, I can continue to beat up on Jeremy Borash for you.
There's no need for that. I think you got the point across very well earlier. Thank you very much for that call, Phil, from Charlotte, North Carolina. You know, a lot of interesting discussion on our chat room here on Blog Talk Radio as well. And, you know, I don't know where this pay-per-view lies. I don't know what you thought of it, to be honest with you. So why don't you head on over to our Facebook page, and right after we go off the air, we're going to have a poll. Pass or fail for TNA Destination X. This one's right in the middle as far as I'm concerned, but I want to hear what all of you have to say, and we'll share the results with you tomorrow night on our ESPN radio show on 540 ESPN, right after WWE Raw at 11 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Central Standard Time. And never miss an episode of the Pro Wrestling Report right here on Blog Talk Radio. And thank you for making us the most popular sports show on all of Blog Talk Radio for the last several months. But don't forget, we're also on iTunes.
Missed an episode on the Pro Wrestling Report? Thanks, pal. Subscribe to the show on iTunes and take the show with you wherever you go, even in the bathroom.
And there you have it. TNA Destination X is in the record books. Join us on our Facebook page to vote on Pass or Fail for tonight's pay-per-view, TNA Destination X. Thank you to all of you who joined us in the chat room here on Blog Talk Radio, and the dozens of you who called in to share your comments, and all of you following us on Twitter. For David Herro, this is Dameon Nelson saying thank you for tuning in to the Pro Wrestling Report post-show for Destination X. We'll see you tomorrow night live on 540 ESPN and all over the world right here on Blog Talk Radio for the Pro Wrestling Report.
You're listening to the most popular sports show on Blog Talk Radio, the Pro Wrestling